Hello, this is Dr. Ben here. In today's show, we're featuring some breathing exercises, but please do not attempt them without first checking with your doctor. Thank you so much. Welcome to Health versus Wealth with Dr. Ben, where each week it's my great pleasure to meet fascinating people who tell us about the challenges they're facing with their work-life balance. I'm Dr. Ben Sinclair, and I wonder, do you struggle with your priorities? On the one hand, focusing on your work, business or career, namely your wealth, or on the other hand, looking after your health, which is so important. Over the past 20 years as a GP, I've seen many people spending too long on their screens, cutting corners on their sleep, diet or exercise. The result? Their work life's going well, but their health can suffer. I sincerely hope that my guests' personal and professional experiences may help you to improve your own health and life. Last week, my guest was gut health expert Vaughan Wickins. Now, we ran out of time because we had so much to talk about. I'm delighted to say Vaughan took me up on the offer, he's honoured his promise, and he's come back to speak to me again today. So, Vaughan, welcome back.
It's an absolute pleasure to be back. Thanks, Ben.
Now, in addition to your expertise in gut health, you're here to tell us all about how breathing is connected to gut health. And you mentioned some key secret about the diaphragm. I'd love to know more about this. And is breathing an area that the public is familiar with?
You know, Ben, as you said, it was actually through the gut or looking into the gut that I stumbled across breathing. And if I thought that the gut was little understood, how much more so than breathing? And that was certainly my case, growing up and doing a lot of sport and being active. But the more I started research on breathing, how come I had never heard about this? How come I had not been trained in breathing? How come I'd never heard about CO2, nitric oxide, the cognitive impact of breathing? So yes, breathing absolutely should be a key pillar of our overall health.
Now, as a doctor, I wasn't really told much about breathing either, so we've been on a similar journey. Tell me, how was it that you first became interested in breathing, and how did you believe it could help you?
So as I said, I was busy investigating gut health and what healthy gut health looked like. And I came across references to the diaphragm. And in addition to listening to a lot of experts, I was experimenting to see what could really work to kickstart your gut motility and gut health. And the diaphragm was key. And as I mentioned, the more I understood about the diaphragm, I then dropped into this rabbit hole of breathing. And excuse the pun, but I then dove headfirst into free diving. And the reason being, I thought, who better to learn about breathing from than extreme athletes whose lives literally depend on their ability to breathe correctly, or in their case, at least hold their breath as well. And what I learned and found out was absolutely fascinating.
I'm really intrigued. You've already got my interest. Now, I believe there was a particular chap who was a champion freediver who you saw a talk, and that really sparked off this rabbit hole experience. Tell us more about Stig Severinsen.
Yeah, Stig Severinsen. It was a TED talk that I watched. In addition to him talking about how important breathing was to so many vital functions in your body, he showed a short clip of him diving under the ice and breaking a Guinness World Record in holding his breath and swimming in just a Speedo in ice cold conditions. And I was fascinated. From then, I started to research free diving and understand more about, the four key aspects of breathing. You've got your inhalation, a pause, an exhalation, and a pause. And notice how I use the word pause is that you say breath hold, but pause, it's actually natural. It's just a breath hold is an extension of a pause. But I certainly didn't know those four different parts to breathing. We get overly focused on the inhalation. And initially, it wasn't actually Stig who I contacted. It was the South African national champion, a chap by the name of Gletwin Rubridge, who was incredibly helpful in looking at his experience on free diving, but when I was looking at it through the lens of the gut. And the two things that I found were really helpful from breathing. As I said, it was the secret that I found that could really unlock gut motility. And the two reasons are, one, breathing's ability to activate your parasympathetic nervous system, But secondly, this diaphragm of yours, this powerful muscle in your body, its ability to put huge mechanical pressure on your internal organs and really fire up that digestive system.
Now, I get the mechanical bit, and I think for the listeners who may not be, anatomically trained, let's talk a bit about the parasympathetic, sympathetic. So in medical school, I was always taught sympathetic turns you into Superman. That was my way to remember it. So it's all about adrenaline. It's sort of fight or flight. You're basically sort of, you're a caveman, you come across a saber-toothed tiger, your sympathetic nervous system kicks in to save you, and you have the fullest of your ability in that moment to either fight or run as fast as you can. And that the parasympathetic is all about rest and digest and calming down and sort of getting into a more restorative, relaxed state. Tell us a bit more about the diaphragm and how that interacts with these two different automatic nervous systems.
Absolutely, and that's exactly beautifully explained, Ben, that you've got this operating system with these two modes. And this is the thing. In today's society, high-paced, stressed, we get stuck in this one mode. We are just switched on all the time. We struggle to switch off. And this parasympathetic state, this is the rest mode that eludes us all the time. We're just stuck in this sympathetic, as you said, or the fight or flight. But the rest mode, and this is the key, rest and digest. So when I was looking at gut health, it was the digestion that I want to kick in. You cannot digest effectively, as I said, if you're busy running a race or your body thinks you're running a race and you're perspiring, your heart rate is pumping, your lungs are breathing, your body is just, this is not time to digest, redivert all the energy to the activity. In our case, unfortunately, it's more mental activity, the stressful lives that we lead. So I was interested in firing up the digestion. What could do that? And what does your breathing do? Well, perhaps I know, Ben, you will be familiar with it, but other listeners, if you've heard of the vagus nerve. Now, the vagus nerve, it is a nerve that is key for your parasympathetic nervous system. And this is your 10th cranial nerve, and it's incredibly interesting in that it is bidirectional. Bidirectional means information flows both ways. So it has efferent as well as afferent nerve endings. And the majority are afferent, which is your sensory nerves, which means it's picking up information from all the key organs in your body, including your lungs. So what do we do when we consciously take control of our breathing? And bearing in mind, breathing is an autonomic function. And I say thank goodness, because I struggle with multitasking. I can't kind of stir a bowl while I read a recipe and talk to Victoria at the same time. So breathing gets taken care of automatically. But unlike your heart rate, you can actually consciously take control of your breathing. So what happens? And this is the thing, and we can unpack it. The minute you are consciously aware of your breathing, you can slow it down, you can direct it, you can start breathing correctly, and we'll look at that. And what that does is that allows your lungs to send signal back up to your brain, your body is feeling relaxed. Your body is relaxed, it can kick in and stay in that parasympathetic nervous system state or that rest and digest mode. So it is a very simple, free, and natural way to biohack your own body using the signaling that is in there. It is how your body was designed.
Wow, that's a really good analogy. And lots has been said in modern times about the gut-brain link. And just to clarify that the vagus nerve is this massive sort of nervous system highway between the abdomen and the brain. And so all of that feedback that you're talking about is coming from all the organs, not just the gut, but it's everything. And the vagus nerve does help also, control heart rate and help you to feel relaxed. And I think one of the problems we've seen is lots of busy, stressed working people, they're breathing up here, in the very top of the lungs because they're very anxious and stressed, and they've never thought to sort of take a deep breath. And so often that anxiety is not allowing them to kind of have a full deep breath right into their belly. And so they're not activating their diaphragm, and they're therefore not benefiting from all of these kind of calming, relaxing signals from the vagus nerve that would actually improve their performance. But actually, they're sort of living on adrenaline right in this top bit, not getting good oxygenation. And there's just this huge sort of cycle which can lead to burnout if you don't breathe properly over many years. And I guess that may be a bit of what happened to you when you were working in the city.
Absolutely. And I know you are really passionate about breathing and had some amazing experiences and like me probably realize, why had you never heard of this before? Something as simple as breathing. And for me, I often get asked, what is the optimum way of breathing? And interesting enough, I say there actually isn't an optimum way of breathing. Instead, you should be breathing according to the outcome that you're looking to achieve. So there, we initially was talking a lot about athletes, but you suddenly started talking about professionals in the working environments. And if you think about it, let's take 3 examples. You've got an executive who's preparing for a meeting and is trying to get clarity. You could have someone who's dealing with stress and anxiety and they're looking to breathe, to relax. Or you could have an athlete, someone who's looking to put in their best time in a 100-meter freestyle sprint. Each of those people will need to breathe differently for the outcome they're looking to achieve. And instead of answering this, what is the optimum way of breathing, very often I flip it around and say, I think the stats, if they to be believed, say more than 90% of us are breathing incorrectly. So what are the common breathing problems that we all make? And if we can look at addressing those, and you've actually just touched on them, that can really help people breathing. So 4 common mistakes that we all tend to make.
That's a great analogy, because actually, if you think of people doing sport, you're going to breathe very differently swimming to long distance running or to, let's say, hiking or cycling. And, actually the pattern of breathing there, you're doing front crawl, you're going to be, breathing every 3rd stroke or choosing to do every 5th stroke if you're slowing it down. With sprinting, you're just, you're actually almost holding your breath because you're in an anaerobic state for a 10-second burst. Then, for cycling up a hill climb, you're absolutely just trying to get gallons of oxygen in as much as you can. So you've got to breathe to the situation you want to perform in.
Absolutely. And you've touched on, if I look at sports that you've mentioned there, a swimmer versus a cyclist, and I mentioned a runner, and it's quite interesting when you look at those. And I mentioned the 4 common mistakes that we all tend to make when we breathe. And number 1 is interesting to look at because we should all be breathing through the nose. Okay. And I say the nose is for breathing, the mouth is for eating. And I mentioned this to a rather quick-witted friend of mine. And as I said, the nose is for breathing, the mouth is for eating. He said, and also kissing. And he is right. But in terms of breathing, what I say is, unless you are swimming or you are talking, as we're doing now, you should always be breathing through your nose, including at nighttime. So breathing through the nose, favor breathing down into your belly, your abdomen, not up into the top of your chest. Breathe at a relaxed pace. We all tend to overbreathe. And finally, focus on the exhalation.
Welcome back to Health versus Wealth with Dr. Ben. And if you're joining us late today, I'm talking to Vaughan Wickins, who's a gut health expert, and he's into breath work. And by the way, I love your shirt, Vaughan.
Thank you. It's hopefully a very simple reminder of how key breathing is to us, and having healthy lungs is key organs to overall health. Now,
before the break, we were talking about that the mouth was for breathing and kissing, and you said the nose was only for breathing, but actually Eskimos do kiss by rubbing the nose. I just wanted to highlight that for you.
Very good spot, man, and 100% correct.
I heard at university that you played water polo. And what other sports did you discover 3 years ago, and why?
Well, I'd always loved the water, so it was swimming and water polo. So interesting enough, I was no stranger to holding your breath. We mentioned how anaerobically, often for short sprints, you can hold your breath and not breathe. So breathing, I know doctors often recommend it for asthma treatment. And there's a strong reason why. Even though you're breathing through your mouth, it's the breath control and breathing less and holding in the pauses. However, when it came to the gut, what I stumbled across was free diving. And it is an unbelievable sport. You've got an individual on a single breath of air at the surface, turning around and diving over 100 meters deep, and then turning around on that same breath of air, coming back to the surface. And the most amazing physiological changes happen in your body, and summarized by this term, the mammalian dive reflex. And I trained with a gentleman called Stig Severson, and he is the Danish 4 times world record holder for free diving, and he calls it your inner dolphin. Remember, when I came across breathing, it was really through the lens of gut health. So I had been playing with the diaphragm, experimenting with the parts of the breathing, including breath holds. And that's when I stumbled across something quite interesting. Through holding your breath, even on the surface, you can trigger this mammalian dive response. And what it did, I found, was certainly cause some fluctuations, let's say, in my gut. I felt it could kickstart my gut. And I looked into this, and I actually contacted one of the leading scientists into freediving, a lady by the name of Erica Chagatai. And there's a phenomenon that's known as immersion diuresis, and that's, you might actually have experienced it. Whenever you jump into the sea, and it's helped if you put on a wetsuit and pressure, you have this incredible urge to pee. If you jump into the sea, and it's also helped by how cold the water is here in the UK. And everyone knows about that, but actually I read another phenomenon that actually some free divers, when they hold their breath for an extended periods, can have the other urge. And I asked Erica about this, and you can absolutely understand it's not often spoken about, but it's not understood. And in her view, it could be holding your breath that long could actually trigger both your sympathetic and your parasympathetic nervous system at the same time. But either way, for me, I found it incredibly interesting to look at on how the correct breathing, using your diaphragm and even breath holds could help you with something like your bowel habits and your toilet habits.
Wow. So breath work, I've always thought of as just for breathing, but you just blown me away and said it's actually for bowel work as well. Now, you talk about breathology, and I know you have some key pillars of health in your resources that you're creating that you talk about, and they're your touchstones in this area. Can you tell us a bit more about the courses you've created and these sort of touchstones that you've got in your backpack?
Absolutely, Ben. Maybe I could frame this, because I know as a doctor we've discussed it, and you look at all of these for this holistic health for people. So the 3 key pillars of health that everyone knows, and you've got your sleep, which you discussed, you've got nutrition, you've got physical activity. However, in addition, recently Dr. Rangan Chatterjee, he recommended a 4th pillar, this one of rest and mental well-being. I would like to suggest that if ancient buildings like the Parthenon can have multiple pillars and columns to add support, that our health is so important we could have more pillars. And there's 2 in particular. And one is elimination, and the other I'd like to suggest is breathing. And when I look at the people that have influenced me, there's a gentleman by the name of Dr. Bernard Jensen, and he was actually one of the early nutritionists and practiced in the 1920s. He was actually a chiropractic physician initially, but he said something you might like, Ben. He said that no doctor should practice any form of health and medicine without first examining all the elimination channels of someone. Your lungs, your skin, your kidneys, your lymphatic system, and your bowels, the most important of which, he said, was your bowels. And I wrote this book, Gutwise, on bowel health, but I'm also super excited to say that I've recently released Gutwise, an online mini course, and really it provides some foundational principles to great gut health, and it helps people answer this question, what is normal when it comes to healthy bowel habits? And the course is loaded with practical tips and advice on fiber, what I recommend to people, my top tip, fiber boosting. And I also look at the gut microbiome, which is so key to absolutely all of us and our overall health. So you can find that course on my website very easily. It's my name, vaughanwickins.com, and hopefully we can provide a link to it, Ben, next to the podcast. So that's a course on the gut health. And in addition, I've got a course on breathing. Remember, I'm motivating that elimination and breathing should be 2 additional pillars to our overall health. So it is a mini course for breathing, and it's ocean breathing. And ocean is an acronym I use running through key aspects to breathing. And I'd love to recommend this to everyone. And we've spoken about executives and whether you're looking for mental clarity, or whether you struggle with anxiety or depression, or indeed if you're an athlete and you're looking to enhance your performance, that breathing is absolutely key. So what are some foundational principles to good breathing? I go through the 4 common mistakes, but importantly, I go through some exercises. No matter who you are. How can you breathe for the outcome that you're looking to achieve? So vaughanwickins.com, have a look at those mini courses.
That's brilliant. You just coined something there for me. Breathe to achieve. I love that, because I think it's really important to decide how you're going to do something, prepare yourself. And you're giving people the tools to perform both in sport and in life and in work. And these are really key things we've talked about before on the podcast. As a kid, I had asthma, and I was advised to sing. And so I joined the choir and sang and actually increased my lung capacity. And then we used to have this game where we'd sit on the bottom of the swimming pool and try and hold our breath for as long as we could. And I think I managed 2 minutes.
Ben, you could join me on our next free diving
come
outing.
On. Let's do it. Now, tell me, what is OCEAN? You mentioned this acronym. What does OCEAN stand for in the course?
It is simply an acronym used to try and summarize and help people around what a good framework is for breathing. Because as we said, there's no optimum way of breathing. You need to breathe for the outcome you're looking to achieve. So O for ocean breathing is optimum breathing. Well, optimum breathing, whenever you can, should be through the nose. We discussed this, so breathing through the nose, and there's so many unbelievable reasons for that, but mainly how your body was designed. Then we've got the C, cadence. Cadence, if you're a cyclist, you're probably used to that term cadence. It's the rhythm that you take, the flow. And when we're talking about breathing, the cadence is what is the speed that you breathe, and this lovely rhythm, like people to picture a sine wave. And it goes with the ocean analogy. Like if you think of a wave in the ocean, you've got troughs and peaks as they flow through, but you want to keep it nice and steady. E, engage the diaphragm, this powerful muscle in your body that helps, as we said, importantly, not only for optimum breathing, but also importantly to activate your gut. And then we've got the A. This is an interesting one. Acoustic exhalation. And I found it wonderful that you mentioned you as a young child managed to find a way to deal with your asthma through singing. And singing, that is a top tip. Singing, when you get vibrations there in your neck, that helps stimulate that vagus nerve, but also without you even realizing, you are taking care of the cadence of your breathing, and you're breathing more fully, not shallow. And that leads us to the last one, the N in ocean, and that stands for natural pauses. And very often language is important in what we use. So people talk about holding your breath, but it sometimes can cause anxiety in people. I like to encourage people, 4 main parts to breathing: your inhalation, natural pause, exhalation, natural pause. And maybe, Ben, if you're up for it, we can do a short exercise. You can talk and we can actually demonstrate to listeners what those 4 parts are.
I would love to do that. And I think it's very helpful to demonstrate these things, because oftentimes people see this kind of thing as maybe a bit specialist, maybe a bit too out there, either a bit too hippie wacko, or like, Wim Hof is quite extreme. You don't have to be in an ice bath to breathe like this. So I would love to do a breathing exercise with you. And I think that it'd be interesting to see how I feel afterwards, because I've experienced a lot of stress when I was working in prison, for example. I was very, very tense and breathing up here, and found that I had to actually I found myself gulping air and needing to actually breathe before I got into consultation. So these exercises are absolutely key to survival in some cases. And the special forces, they use breath work before they go into battle to actually calm themselves and to bring focus and clarity.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting there you mention mental health, because so often when I talk to people and educate them, it's around the health benefits on breathing, or actually flip it around. You can exercise all you want. You can eat all the right foods. You can sleep 8 hours a day. But unless you are breathing correctly, you will always be sick. Now, Ben, that's not me talking. That's James Nestor, New York journalist. And he spent years looking into breathing, but talking to experts in the field. And that is what one of the experts told him, and he absolutely believes. And I do too. And if you look at the list of ailments that are linked to breathing,
wow. And there's so many things, modern day illnesses, I'm thinking of sleep apnea, diabetes, hypertension, weight gain, pre-diabetes. They're all related to getting too much sort of weight around the neck and mouth breathing problems, in my opinion. So you're absolutely spot on. Now, you said there was this breath exercise that we could do. I'd love to do it. Tell me what the name is, and then let's try and do some breathing today.
Absolutely. And this is a very straightforward and simple exercise. So simple. The name is even simple. 1-2 breathing. 1-2 breathing. And as you've mentioned, there are a number of ways you can breathe for relaxation. And one is box breathing. And you mentioned that was popularized by the Navy SEALs. There's also 4-7-8, popularized by Dr. Andrew Weil. And there are various pranayama ratios. It's just ratios. How do you breathe a ratio of your inhalation to your exhalation. But 1-2 breathing is the simplest. And my trainer, he calls it rest on demand. Rest on demand. And it's really straightforward. And all it is the ratio of your inhalation to your exhalation.
Okay.
So if you breathe in for 3, you breathe out for 6. If you breathe in for 4, you breathe out for 8. The ratio of 1-2.
So should we demonstrate that for the listeners now? And you can show me how that works. What do I need to do this?
It firstly just kicks off with becoming conscious of your breathing. And remember, we said breathing is an autonomic function, but actually if you consciously take charge of your breathing, immediately you can start to change your mental health, your well-being.
So I'm sat here, I'm trying to become conscious of my breathing.
Correct. So what we're doing, fantastic, you're sitting upright, so we want to open up the chest. But very simply, what you're going to do, and I will help count you through it, we're going to breathe in, and my preference typically is for a 4-8 count, but like to start with a 3-6.
Okay.
So I'm going to count you in, and you're going to breathe in through the nose for a count of 3, slight pause, breathe out for a count of 6, slight pause, and repeat. Okay. And we'll do 4 rounds of that, breathing through the nose, and you will breathe down into your belly. So if you're ready, let's make a start. So breathing in through the nose, 1, 2, 3, slight pause. Breathing out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Slight pause. Breathing in again, 1, 2, 3. Slight pause. Breathing out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Do one last round. Breathing in for 1, 2, 3. Slight pause. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Relax and take a few breaths normally through the nose.
Oh, that really calmed me down.
Yeah. What I encourage you to do, breathe to about 60 to 70% of your lung capacity. So you're not straining, but at first, the more you do it, you will relax and you'll find your ability to breathe lower for a lower volume, like Dr. Bateko said, a lot easier. And you'll hopefully will also find those pauses natural. If you get a bit anxious on the pauses, just go smoothly out and transition from the exhalation into the inhalation.
Wow. Where can people find this? Do you have a website that you can recommend to people to find your resources?
Yeah, very easy. It's my name, vaughanwickins.com, and you'll see the links to the site. And I've also got some helpful resources, just some articles that I'm writing to provide a little bit more guidance on things relating to gut health and also breathing. But yeah, the short mini courses I found are easily digestible, if you excuse the pun, and really practically focused.
Love that. Love that. Vaughan, that's all we've got time for today. It has been fascinating. I almost feel like I'm about to fall asleep after that breathing exercise. I'm so relaxed. So,
like a monk in a monastery, hopefully, Ben.
Exactly. Thank you again for coming in today. And I really hope the listeners have benefited from your expert knowledge. Thank you so much.
Absolute pleasure.
So I do hope you enjoyed today's episode of Health versus Wealth with Dr. Ben, and I hope it may help you improve your life and health. You can also take one easy step by achieving that right now by subscribing free on your usual podcast platform. And if you'd like to be a guest on the show, you can email me on podcast@drfinlays.co.uk. I hope you'll join me again, but for now it's goodbye from me, Dr. Ben.